All right, so this is called the FANG of summoning, and what shall I say? Well, it has a lot of things in it. There's an army of 6 children, and the 6 children have to save the world from evil because it's all about good and evil. There are twins who can see through each other's eyes, who can hear what the other one is hearing. There's a 13-year-old boy who, when he plays music, he plays the piano and metal things start forming in the air from what he plays. His sister is 9 years old, and she discovers that when she says things to people, they start doing exactly what she's saying. There's a little 2-year-old girl who draws things with magic markers and they come alive. And so here are these 6 children who discover that their grandfather, who's called Harish Chandra, as in Raja Harish Chandra, that he is a guardian. He's a keeper of a star stone. So one of the things that I loved most about writing this book is that I've set it in present-day India, specifically in present-day Gurgaon. And it's interesting because what happens is that when these children start getting their extraordinary powers, it's not as if you say, oh, you're a wizard, let me take you off to Hogwarts, and you come into this magical world. You're still living in Gurgaon. There's no magical world. And the other part of the part of the book is set in ancient Iceland. The reason I chose Iceland is because its landscape is just startling. Its landscape is so evocative that you can see how people come up with stories about it. So you can see rocks in the most fascinating shapes, you can see rivers coming out of nowhere, you can see volcanoes that are still erupting. It's just geologically the most fascinating place, and I found that beliefs and folk tales arise from the land itself. So if you have a weirdly shaped mountain, there's a whole story about why it's weirdly shaped. There's a lot of Indian mythology in this book, and I thought that was exciting to have Indian mythology that's not just an anthology of myths but part of a story. And there's a lot of Icelandic mythology and a lot of Icelandic landscape in it. So the reason the Indian mythology is there is because we all grew up with it. So I found that a lot of Indian mythology tied in with a lot of Icelandic, Nordic mythology. So it's not history per se, although the historical facts in there are all true. How it got settled, what people did, how they ate, how they slept, all of that is factually true. So there's a lot of research that went into the book in terms of its geology, in terms of its astronomy. All the astronomical facts are all true about the twin stars, about the wobbling of the earth, and so on. All of that is true. The mythology is all taken from regular mythology. I've just tweaked it a little bit. I started writing this as a story about my nephews and nieces, to my nephews and nieces. So I would write them a few chapters, then they would say, "Phir kya hua?" I would write them something else. And about 60 pages into it, I began to get excited myself, and I thought, maybe I have something here. So when I started writing the story for my nephews and nieces, it starred my nephews and nieces. You know how children like to hear stories about themselves. And so when I started writing it in full book form, those characters were already there. It's also true that most of the powers I've given the children, they actually have. So let me explain before you think my family is entirely crazy, which it is. So the oldest 2 children are twins. And I've known them since they were born. And the fact is that when they were very small, 2 years old, 3 years old, one would begin a sentence, the other would finish it, as twins often do. And we would often think, did they discuss this before they came to us with it? How is it that they know exactly what they're thinking? So from there to say that they can actually hear what the other person is thinking or see through it was just a minor leap. It was not such a big shift. The youngest of the children, 2 years old, I don't think that what she draws comes alive. I don't seriously. But I think she does. And that's the thing. At some point, someone in the book says, why would this power be given to a 2-year-old child? What can a 2-year-old child do, after all? Why was it not given to someone older who could use it better? And the response is that the 2-year-old children believe in things that adults don't. And if you believe in a fairy and you draw it, that fairy will come alive. Whereas if you and I draw a fairy, it will not come alive. We don't believe in fairies. So in many ways, you know, these characters wrote themselves. But it's also true that having begun from there, they are independent characters in a book. They're not real people. I realized that young people are heroes to me. They are. I mean, they go out every day, they get bullied, they have mean teachers, they have good teachers, they have victories, they have defeats, and they feel this stuff more than you and I, not less. And so when they have a setback, they have this huge setback, the world comes to an end. And yet, you know, the next day they pick up their feet, they carry on. That to me is heroism. So I actually, excuse me, took a lot of inspiration just from all the young people that I know. I think that young adult books are for all adults who are young. There's a way in which the imagination is unfettered, it's unconstrained when you're writing for young people, in a way in which if I was writing this book for you, for an adult, there would be all kinds of constraints. I would say, well, you know, adults are not interested in magic powers, so what should I write about? And I think that writing for this age group really sets you free.